Hi, welcome back. This is videocast number 2 for our unit on development. We're talking about adolescence today. By the way, today I'm in a really funky, cool coffee shop. Tell me which one this is. I'll be impressed. It's in Des Moines, so those of you thinking about going to school in Des Moines, this will be a great place for you to go study. Let us get going. So first I want to scroll back to the questions we really care about, our essential questions here. How do people develop physically, cognitively, socially, and morally throughout the lifespan? We discussed last time children and babies, and now, if I can find it, where are we? There's babies. There we go. We're going to talk about adolescence. So, what do you associate with adolescence? What physical, cognitive, and social changes mark your adolescence? Think about that for a second. I'm sure you all know this one very well. You just went through it. Let's take a look at what those are. So adolescence, definition for you, the transition period from childhood to adulthood, extending from puberty to independence. Puberty is the period of sexual maturation during which a person becomes capable of reproducing. Remember maturation? That word in the last video cast, maturation means the body matures and your behavior changes as a result of that. Well, sexual maturation, this is the time in life where kids before this did not display much sexual interest and were not capable of engaging in sexual activity and for the purpose of reproduction, and now they are. Okay. So, physical development, primary sex characteristics. This includes reproductive organs and external genitalia. So, the girls have the ovaries, the vagina, and estrogen. Estrogen begins to ramp up production at this time period. Boys have the testes, the penis, and testosterone. The hormone also begins to ramp up at this time period. But then there are secondary sex characteristics. These are non-reproductive traits that also distinguish a male from a female. Girls would be breasts and wide hips. Mostly you think of breasts included in a primary sex characteristic, a reproductive trait, right? But it actually isn't. That's for breastfeeding later on. And then wide hips, while not necessary, allow for more room for childbearing. Boys, facial hair, and deepened voices. Ooh, hello! Menarche. This is the first menstrual period for a girl, and this also occurs. It's called menarche. Alright, as teens mature, development of the frontal lobes continue. So we have improved judgment, improved impulse control, and ability to plan for the long term. The frontal lobe maturation lags the emotional limbic system, however, and everyone thinks it's your hormones flooding through you kind of thing. That's a joke, but it's actually this frontal lobe slowing down your emotional limbic system, and so we have very compulsive behavior and risky behavior as well. At the same time, we also have self-awareness, so people are really exploring who they are and how far that can take them at this time. Cognitive development, so finding a sense of morality is able to be achieved at this level. Look at these names. These are 3 of your key people. Haidt argues that morality is a gut feeling. He has a social institutionalist argument that basically says that you react to your environment in a moral way, and then after doing so, you come up with morality. Piaget argues, so he thinks it's within, you're built with it basically. Piaget argues that morals build with your cognitive development, so as you grow, you're more able to reason and you're more able to find this morality. And then Kohlberg argues for a moral reasoning, that adolescents develop a capacity for formal operation, and that this development is the foundation for moral judgment. So he believes that moral judgment and the capacity for it at a deep level is not apparent until adolescence. And let's take a closer look at that. We have the pre-conventional stage of moral reasoning. This is pre-age 9. This is self-interest. You follow the rules to gain or avoid something, right? This is reward punishment. And so the only reason that somebody would be morally good and just at this age level, age 9 and before, is simply because they're concerned about reward and punishment. Conventional, this is early adolescence, and they care for others, but they really follow the rules because those are the rules. So when you were in middle school, you tended to just follow the rules because they're the rules. Post-conventional, this is when you start to ask why. Like I give you a rule like no hats in class and you say why. So this is from now in your life until you die. Actions are judged right because they flow from people's rights or from self-defined basic ethical principles. This is the time in your lives when you start to understand what does it mean to be a human being? and what sort of innate rights do human beings have, and a morality flows from that. Right, social development. Erik Erikson, also a name that you need to know. He believed that each stage of life has a psychosocial crisis. Erikson's work in psychology has been hugely influential on education. If you have not seen this connection between psychology and education yet, see it here, okay? So the adolescent stage, this is a search for identity, that sense of self, and social identity. This is the answers to the question, who am I, in terms of group memberships. We're also in adolescence searching for intimacy. You're looking for relationships that extend beyond the parent-child boundary, and provide that sense of intimacy outside that relationship. And you're also separating from parents at the same time. On page 451 in the textbook, there is the full table of Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial crisis. And you need to put this table in your notes, okay? So we'll talk about that more in class. All right, social development, emerging adulthood. So this is going to talk mostly about gender here. The biological and social. So this is emerging adulthood is where we understand this concept of what our gender really is. Sure, it's something physical, but it's also something incredibly social. So biology and social influenced characteristics of who is male and who is female. And your role is something else that we look at. What's your role as a gender? So a role is a set of expectations or norms about your social position, defining how your position ought to behave, and what job you should have, all these sorts of things. Gender role is a set of expected behaviors for males and females, and every society has this gender role. Gender identity is our sense of being male or female. In some cultures, actually, gender identity is acknowledged for hermaphrodites and people of both genders, as well as people of no gender at all, and that does occur. So, gender typing, this is the acquisition of traditional masculine or feminine role, the stay-at-home mom and the coal mining father. And we're really, really challenging that gender typing pretty much ever since World War II, rose through the Riveter, coal mining mom and stay-at-home dad. So whatever the role changes, we really have questions of what is gender? What does it mean to be male? What does it mean to be female? Okay, social learning theory. This is the argument that we learn social behavior by observing and imitating, and by being rewarded or punished. And this argument really holds up well up until later adolescence. Until that time, we really are mimicking behavior. And this is why it's important to catch, especially females in our society, from anorexia, bulimia, and other sorts of eating disorders earlier on, because really what they're doing is trying to mimic our society and doing so in an unhealthy way. So they can't distinguish things, from one another at this time period. They can't reason and logic through that social behavior part of life yet. So they're observing and they're imitating, and then they get rewarded or punished, and that's how they explore which behaviors are appropriate and which are not. So children learn their gender-linked behaviors through observing others. All right, so here's some review for you. If you do not have the answers to these questions, go in the textbook and find them. What is the social learning theory? Why do teens indulge in risky behaviors? And what are the difference between primary and secondary sex characteristics? That is going to do it for our video cast on adolescence, and we'll be coming back